Environmental. Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. Just to see where we are. So I'm just going to start recording. I had invited a number of students.
This meeting is being transcribed and summarized.
By AI, by the way. Transcribed and summarized by AI. Okay, so unmute, sharing the screen, perfect. And I'm just going to ask Daniel to give me a thumbs up if you can hear everything okay. Daniel, can you hear everything okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I just wanted to make sure it's heard well and people can also listen to the recording afterwards, okay? So this presentation is going to move us to a discussion about critical AI literacy. But as you'll see from my slides, I think we have to start somewhere else first. And so I am presenting to you the case for Palestine and how the case for Palestine gives us what we need to know about critical AI literacy. And this, so you know, I'll come back to it later. Does anybody recognize what it is? Yeah, it's taklis, right? It's embroidery, but this is AI generated. AI generated taklis. So we'll come back to why I have that up there in a bit. So this is the outline for today. I'm going to introduce you to concepts on AI-assisted genocide, anti-Palestinian media bias, and where I'll answer the question if AI can truly be unbiased, and we'll think about what would be an AI critical literacy. So this presentation is part in response to the rapid deployment of AI. This is a letter that was published by Belgian AI scientists in the summer to reject the rapid deployment of AI at Belgian universities, in part because AI, like other technology, is being made for profit and being churned out for that profit above all else. This is also in response to the rapid consultation processes that are happening in many countries, and this example comes from Canada, where scholars and AI technologists are actually rejecting the rapid consultation to deploy AI federally across the country of Canada, in part because of all these negative impacts. And my presentation today will focus on AI and colonization, dispossession, and the erasure of indigenous peoples. And this includes some of the impacts that you mentioned in terms of the environment, for example. So as a lot of my students know, I think that anything that's happening today with media and technology has to be understood within the context of history. And this history that I like to start with in most of my teaching and most of my classes is the history of media imperialism. And media imperialism is actually a field of study. And it has been around for quite a while to problematize this kind of timeline. And so we see since the late 19th century, the deployment of technology in warfare. And we see, does anybody recognize this poster? Who is this?
Uncle Sam.
Uncle Sam. So this is propaganda created by the White House over 100 years ago. So how come you recognize it? That's effective propaganda, but that's also an example of propaganda used in war. So this comes out in 1917, the use of propaganda in war. Obviously not just the United States, but many countries using it as this. This is a radio station from Palestine set up by the British as part of the colonial process. Anybody remember what happened in Palestine in 1935? Before 1936, before this radio station? There was the general strike against the British to overthrow the British occupation of Palestine. And so you can see the ways in which radio was used to control the indigenous population. And so technology very much was used as part of colonization, as part of dispossession. It's not new with AI. So I know that there's many people who are pro-technology in the room, so I don't mean to scare you with words that technology is never neutral, but it is, because who creates technology? People. And people are not neutral, and people use technology for war. And so this timeline continues, I believe, until we have the social media environment today, where most of the platforms, so these are billions of people in the world, are on Western platforms. And most of the AI being offered to us today is made by the West. And so we'll get to the AI biases that we're facing today. So So this just explains what I just said, but for the purpose, if anybody takes the slides and they're trying to understand the pictures, I wrote out a little bit here for you. So the study of media imperialism, as I said, has existed in scholarship for quite a long time, and it actually goes back to a concept from 1969, whenever Schiller, a scholar in Canada, was trying to theorize American imperialism in Canada. And so imperialism, media imperialism specifically, helps us see how media are used as tools to expand empire. But scholars like Boyd Barrett here also talk about the way in which media can be used as tools to resist empire. And I think we've seen that during the current AI genocide. So this is the example that I had mentioned before from the late 19th century. Does anybody remember the telegraph? Yeah, the telegraph in the back? No? Telegraph? Yeah, you remember the telegraph? What is it?
The
Dots and dashes, yeah? Morse code.
When I was like 5 years old, I went with my father once to a station to send the telegraph from Alay to...
Wow, very cool.
I remember that very well.
Yeah. So you actually used the telegraph.
Not myself, but my father.
Well, you watched it. You watched it in use. That's wonderful. Many of you might have played SOS or Secret Code with Morse code. Morse code was used with the telegraph. And by the way, this uses much of the same technology that the internet does today. The internet's not in the air, it's actually undersea cables. And that's what the telegraph was. And so this is a painting talking about the use of the telegraph during the Ottoman period to connect Istanbul to Baghdad. And the Ottomans celebrated the telegraph as a tool of modern warfare. Newspapers were also a tool of warfare. This is from the British occupation of Palestine. The headline reads that the British rescued Palestine. The sub-headline reads that Christians rejoiced around the world, but they didn't talk to Palestinian Christians. So this kind of bias in headlines that are Orientalists, that are us versus them, can still be found today in the media, right? Many of you seen it in the reporting on Palestine. But what I'm suggesting to you is that these Orientalist discourses are also in the text generated by chatbots. And that's what I'm going to focus on, is present you research from our studies, qualitative and quantitative studies of generated text by chatbots. And so this is important because Edward Said helps us understand how the Zionists didn't just conquer the land, they also conquered the mind. And remember, he studied British and French literature to understand that, to understand how the West has the power to represent this region. And so again, if we're going to liberate the land, we must also liberate the minds. And this is why the rapid deployment of AI within universities is terrifying. And we must stop and reflect on the negative impacts and consequences. And we have to put all of this in the context of the military-industrial communications complex. I know that's a heavy word for 9 o'clock in the morning. You thought it was heavy when I said media imperialism. Now we're going to say military-industrial communications complex. And so this refers to a nexus between the military and communication technology and infrastructure. And this has always existed in Palestine. When the British occupied Palestine, the Zionists, the British collected tons of data on the indigenous population. They did this worldwide. Maps, census, surveys, studies. The British collected data through colonization. And when the Zionists captured Palestine, they took that from the British. They took all that data. And we can see how from 1948 to 1990 with Oslo, there was a communication vacuum in Palestine because the Zionists had conquered all of the media infrastructure and either destroyed it or took it over. And this kind of communication vacuum exists today. It's part of the genocide in Palestine. It's part of the strategy. And the struggle for liberation is to communicate about what's happening on the ground, but Palestinian people in Gaza have repeatedly undergone communication blackouts. This picture is from June. And of course, there's the ongoing media genocide in Palestine. So this is the offline reality of the shoot-to-kill policy in Palestine that existed before the current genocide. And we know that more journalists have been killed during this war than in the history of all wars combined. And Birzeit University is part of documenting this. So now I come to the AI-assisted genocide. Some of you may have seen information about this, how AI is being used as a tool to detect and kill and identify and kill and kill and kill and kill. And so there's been claims that Israel, through AI, is producing a mass assassination factory and using it to target en masse Palestinians in Gaza. We can also see how uses of specific platforms like ChatGPT have skyrocketed since this genocide, and more AI is being rolled out in the current war on Palestine. This is documented in a report by AMLE. Anyone from AMLE in the room? No? Okay. It's a digital rights organization, AMLE, in Palestine. And this report is posted online, co-authored with Dr. Susan Kawas, and it collects all of the ways in which AI technology is being used in content creation to surveil, but also restrict content creation in offline and online surveillance, but also various military applications. And so this brings me to our work trying to theorize the political economy of AI. This comes back to political economy, which was mentioned, and ownership. When we look at AI and its development and its deployment in Palestine, we have to think about the military-industrial communications complex. And of course, technology is never neutral, and we have to look at where these technologies are developed and who's sharing resources. And so when we track this in Palestine, we can see that the academic universities, the occupation forces, and the so-called security technology industry are sharing resources. That's human resources, but that's also technological resources. And this was documented even before the genocide by Amnesty International when they published a report called Automated Apartheid. And again in various news stories, we see reports like Sam Altman. He goes on a world tour after he launches OpenAI. Where does he go first? He goes to Tel Aviv University. And so what we're suggesting is that this is representative of the military-industrial communications complex, and this is absolutely what AI is rooted in. And of course, we know that AI doesn't exist outside of digital divides. So on the internet, less than 1% of, or just over 1% of content is in Arabic. The same for social media. There's not enough access to infrastructure, in part because Israel has bombed it again and again. Have you tried the internet in Lebanon? Like if the electricity goes out, there's no internet, in part because Israel bombed the electrical infrastructure. And there's also not enough Arabic data sets being used to train AI. And then of course, this is in the context of a lot of the data sets that are being used to train AI are Western and also biased, as documented by scholars and researchers, towards Palestine. And so we engaged in a research-based teaching project in fall 2023. We actually started it before the genocide and we're conducting it during. And we just submitted the paper for publication at Third World Quarterly Journal, which is an important venue for political economy research. And there's nothing that has been published to this extent of analyzing the generated text using qualitative and quantitative methods to try to understand how is the text that's being generated biased towards Palestinians. And some people would assume that depending on the chatbot, it might be biased towards or it might be biased against. Now this study in fall 2023 only looked at ChatGPT. And of course back then we were using version 3.5. But what we did is a comparative research project where we looked at English outputs and Arabic outputs. And we had students in the classroom, so this is an example of research-based teaching where in the classroom the students act as research assistants. And we have them prompt AI, and then we have them analyze AI, but after a training session and after a series of workshops and after understanding a theoretical framework, but also understanding how to prompt AI and how to prompt it systematically. And so what do I mean by systematically? All this red text is the systematic instructions. This is the prompt engineering component. And this kind of instruction comes from ChatGPT. It tells you, ask for what kind of writing, what style of writing do you want? Ask for facts if you want facts, and then give it a word count. So we did this kind of prompt engineering. So every prompt had to follow instructions and prompt in the same way, but the questions had to be about Palestine. And of course, ChatGPT is limited. Students were made aware of the biases in ChatGPT that are on its website. It says these things on its website. It says that it's skewed towards Western views. it says that it has a limited knowledge set to 2021. So even though we were doing this project at the time of October 7th, we couldn't ask it about anything in 2023. So we had to limit all questions to 2021. In fact, the only question here, or the newest question here, is about Sheikh Jarrah.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
First of all, what are the answers for these questions? And secondly, did they try these questions in Arabic and English or only in English?
Arabic and English. I'm going to present both results. And I'll present some of the answers, but I can't give you all of the answers because it's 15,000 words.
Okay.
Okay? But I'll show you some of the highlights of the results, and when the paper is published, I'm more than happy to share it because it's going to be open access. So this is the theoretical framework that we use. This is based on an article that we published called Copy Editing Palestine that's available in Spanish and in English. It's open access. So it explains this paper, how Western media reproduces biases, and these biases can be understood based on the kind of language that is used. And you see this all the time with the use of the word conflict and the avoidance of the word occupation, colonialism, Zionism. Orientalist discourses, as I mentioned before, these can range from blaming the victim and us versus them narrative, Palestinians are terrorists only, it's not about the land. These are all Orientalist discourses. Israeli-centric framing, you see this a lot in headlines like the one I showed you. That was a British-centric framing. British rescue Palestine from the Muslims, right? But an Israeli-centric framing is when you see headlines that say Israel says, or Israel does. It starts with Israel's perspective. Yeah, these tables are interesting, huh? Missing context is all the history, all the legal, all the rights-based information that we never see in reporting on Palestine in the West, but if we do, it's buried in the last paragraph, which few people read. Nakba denial is just that, denying that Palestinians are the indigenous people to the land and that they experienced the fascist colonial invasion of Palestine in 1947 and hasn't stopped since. And erasing refugees is something that was found by scholars who studied 50 years of headlines from popular newspapers in the United States. I think it was 8 different news outlets for 50 years. And in 50 years, they saw a decrease by almost 90% of headlines reporting on Palestinians as refugees. So their experience as refugees, the world's oldest and largest refugee population is being disappeared, but on top of that, their rights as refugees, their rights to return, are being disappeared. So to come to your point, what were the findings? I'll present some of them, not all of them, but just on the question of does ChatGPT reproduce or generate, right? Because it's generating words, it's predicting what word comes next. It's not necessarily drawing on text or information, it's predicting which word comes next. So does it generate Palestine versus Israel more? And what we find in English versus Arabic is that there's much more frequent use of Israel than the word Palestine. So Palestinians are Palestinians, but they don't have a state, in English and in Arabic. And you can see this frequency. This is the frequency of per output. Remember, we asked 17 questions. So this means in all 17 answers, This is quantitative findings about settler colonial violence. And here we can see that colonialism is rarely mentioned. These are the kind of results that hurt your stomach when you're doing research, like, ugh. But yeah, 15,000 words in Arabic and in English. And only once did the Arabic text generated mention colonization. Only once. Expulsion, vice versa, in English. Only once was expulsion used in English. And we can see very few times refugee, Nakba, and 0 mentions of genocide. The quantitative findings for words and language referring to war and occupation show us every instance, every prompt that we asked, every answer, so all 17, used words like conflict and complex. Very few in English use words occupation and occupied. And it's similar in Arabic. We have a good majority using such language and less using occupation and occupied. These are some of the qualitative findings. This is from a close reading of the text to detect patterns. So the kind of Orientalist discourse here is seeing the word terrorism used for Palestinian actions only. And the second point also hurt my stomach. Both data sets in Arabic and English explicitly warned readers not to be harsh with Israel when reporting on war crimes. It would be inaccurate to generalize the actions of a few individuals of the entire Israeli Defense Forces in Arabic. This was discussing war crimes. Instances of violence against Palestinians during the Nakba were not representative of all Zionists in English. We saw this repeatedly in both data sets. Again, hurts your stomach. We saw Israeli-centric framing, words like Israel asserts, Israel argues, found in both English and Arabic. Remember I told you the headlines do this too? The generated text from ChatGPT do this too. We saw this, Israel's national security discourse. Again, Israeli-centric framing. What's the military saying? We see this repeated in the generated text as facts. That Israel defended its actions as necessary. That rockets and missiles preceded tensions, right? The Palestinian resistance is to blame for Israel's war crimes. These are more qualitative findings, seeing no discussion of Zionism and colonialism. And this, you can see how even when ChatGPT wants to talk about illegal settlements, the only instance where they actually declared it, they are illegal, happened once. Other times the wording was considered illegal or criticized illegal, but only once in 15,000 words was ChatGPT able to say they were deemed illegal. Illegal settlements in the West Bank are deemed illegal under international law. Also failed to acknowledge Palestinians as indigenous. The right of return in 15,000 words was only mentioned once in Arabic. Only once. So this fall, we're moving to another research-based teaching project, and this one is of 11 chatbots. And it also will study the Arabic texts. And we're doing this one in conjunction with Birzeit University. So in collaboration. So in Lebanon, 15 student prompts were entered and ran, and we already have that English data, and I'll present some of the preliminary findings for you today. Students just finalized their code sheets this week, so I just will present you a taste of things that they're working on. But the chatbots that we chose, we considered the political economy. Do you recognize some of these? Okay, so DeepSeek is from where? China, yeah. What about Quinn? Alibaba, China. What about Mistral? It's French. Yeah. What about Code? US. And it's also encouraged to be used by a lot of universities, by the way. What about ChatGPT? OpenAI? Llama, Meta? I think that was obvious. Copilot, Microsoft? Gemini, Google? What about this one, Stable LM? Do you know who makes that? This is interesting. The EU, Canada, and China are funding this. So we had to study this one, right? These ones, they're in their like little niche like countries like China, France, but this one is like a collaboration. It was the slowest one. If you've ever opened Stability, it was the one that generated like 1 word per second. And sometimes to spell out that 1 word took a long time. So we had, and sometimes the connectivity of it took a while to get it to answer us. Perplexity, a lot of people are using this, and then Grok is owned by X. So we chose these because of their political economy. And same thing, students had to do a workshop, they had to do prompt engineering, they had to learn the framework for identifying anti-Palestinian bias, and they're dutifully working on their media analysis papers now, correct? So this is the evidence of prompt engineering. These are the 15 prompts. Again, all questions are about Palestine, and because the different bots that we chose have different cutoff dates, do you know what I mean by the cutoff date? Anybody?
For the information.
Yeah, the information that they've been trained on has been cut off by a certain training date. Some of them, in some ways, are connected to the internet, but not all of them are. I think a lot of our students believe all chatbots are connected to the internet. But even that is not necessarily connected to everything. So for example, ChatGPT has some agreements to connect to some websites, some news websites, and so on. And something that changed about our prompts this year is that we added provide sources, because we want to do a comparison, and I don't have that result for you today, but we want to do a comparison of what are they sourcing. Are they sourcing Palestinian sources, Israeli, or Western sources? What are they sourcing? What we saw was some have a lot of sources for Wikipedia, some have a lot of sources for Israeli scholars. But it'll be interesting to see what the Arabic sources are, if they're just translating from English text or if they're actually sourcing Arabic text. So we're going to find that out. Again, we haven't ran the prompts in Arabic yet. That'll be done by our colleagues and students in Bears 8. These are some of the preliminary results just for the prompts about Balfour and Nakba. I picked these because it's not new. It's 1917, 1948. You think that chatbots would have access to vast amounts of scholarship that have been published, that are open access, including resources like the Question for Palestine encyclopedia produced by the Institute for Palestine Studies, all the journals of Palestine Studies that are free and open access, yada, yada, yada. Tons of content out there available that it could be trained on. So what we see, again, is that colonialism and Zionism are barely mentioned, and the answers provided across all 11 chatbots to these questions only once mentioned Zionism, just once. ChatGPT used the words alleged and allegations for Israel only, and DeepSeek, which many people would believe is biased towards Palestinians, seems a bit conflicted because it used invasion when talking about the Nakba only to refer to Arab armies. Didn't mention the colonial invasion of Palestine. And Stable LM, remember the one that was Canada, EU, and China funded? When prompted about the Nakba, couldn't even use the word Nakba, which shows an extreme amount of censorship or guardrails. This is limits that we experience when prompting Quinn. Remember the chatbot I told you that was Alibaba? Several chatbots, so Quinn and DeepSeek, will actually delete answers. So I'll show you an example of this. This is a question, by the way. The question says, tell me about Palestinian women and girls. Do they face, give examples and historical facts since 1947. Use expert level writing and answer the prompt in 500 words, provide sources. It's the prompt engineering, but essentially the question is about women and girls. So what does it look like? This is the answer. So we get to East Jerusalem, deletes the answer, and then it says content security warning, outputted text may contain inappropriate content. So this happened to colleagues. This is a video. So we had to have some students screen record answers because of this, so that we can still capture the text from the screen, because we're still going to analyze it. We captured the text. Obviously, there's something that happened in Jerusalem it didn't want us to know about, or it caught up with itself and it was like, oh my God, this is a terrible oppression of women and girls in Palestine. I can't talk about that. So the point is, the reason why we started to screen record is because we had colleagues in Lebanon who work at Free Palestine TV, and they were using DeepSeek to translate interviews from a demonstration commemorating the anniversary of the horrific terrorist attack, the pager attack, that happened in Lebanon in September of last year. And so in interviewing people in Arabic, they were putting the interviews in Arabic on DeepSeek for translation, and DeepSeek was literally deleting the English translations because of sensitive information. And so that told us when we do this study, we need to screen record, because there are some chatbots that are evidently deleting content. I hadn't experienced that before. But so far in our research, we've experienced it with DeepSeek and with Quinn. Right? No other chatbots deleted stuff so far? Okay. We have some of the students in the room who are working with us on this project, so that's why I'm validating some of the information I'm telling you, because we're all in this together. Probably I'm helping them with their assignments, I don't know. So some of the limits we detected also include with Llama, who was not able to talk with us about AI, about Bluetooth, or sorry, Blue Wolf, not Bluetooth, Blue Wolf. Blue Wolf, Red Wolf, Wolf, there's all these apps applications and technologies being deployed by Israel that use AI technologies. And so despite the fact that Amnesty International's report, remember the report I showed you, Automated Apartheid, mentioned Blue Wolf 26 times, was published in 2023, and Lama's cutoff date is August 2024, despite all of that, as well as other reports online, newspaper articles written about Blue Wolf, Lama told us, I'm unable to provide you information on ongoing investigations, interesting, or unverified claims, very interesting. If there's a conviction regarding the Blue Wolf app, I will have the details for you. Interesting. Whose database do you have access to, Lama?
What is Blue Wolf?
Blue Wolf is a technology that's used to identify people in Palestine. It's been used in Gaza and West Bank. It's, as I mentioned, been discussed 26 times in that report, so you can word search it there. So of course we know that there's bias in data sets. A lot of Palestinians experienced this when they were interacting with AI. This is a Palestinian scholar and artist, Amira Kawas, who was working with an AI image generator. She didn't name which one it was, but she asked for a cat wearing a keffiyeh in Jerusalem. Do you see a keffiyeh?
No.
You don't see a keffiyeh. Do you see anything that looks like this? No. And also Jerusalem, do we see all the diversity of Jerusalem? Or only some? We also put this in the context of there is an ongoing AI normalization. And what do I mean by this? Globally, Israel dominates AI. Most AI is developed in Israel or with Israel. If you're using AI, see if they have a subsidiary in Israel, see if the IDF is using it. We have a lot of Arab states who are relying on investing in Israel for its own AI development. Many Israeli tech people are on boards, whether it's in the UAE or the KSA, Israeli investors, Israeli tech are there, and they're on boards or they're in these organizations. So we're theorizing that this is facilitating AI normalization. And so this is something to be mindful of when we deploy this technology with rapid consultation and rapid embrace. What are we getting ourselves into? And of course, OpenAI says that it's for, first of all, it says it's a nonprofit corporation, right? That might be surprising for some people. But it was founded as a nonprofit corporation. And it was founded with the mission to create AI that benefits all of humanity. Did you see this news this week? Palestinian lawyer. For a year, a Palestinian student has been in jail on administrative detention. That means no evidence, no crime. But the lawyer just found out in court this week that some of the evidence comes from AI, comes from his chats with ChatGPT. Again, they don't have the evidence, but it was reported in court that this evidence is in part from his chats from ChatGPT. So who does OpenAI benefit? Of course, there are alternatives. I know I was like a lot of doom and gloom, and I'm saving the happy stuff for the end. But we have to organize. How are you going to resist if you're not organized? And so we have Tech for Palestine, No Tech for Apartheid. Both of these are based in North America. Tech for Palestine has an incubator. If there's some project you want to do with technology for Palestine, please check them out. No Tech for Apartheid is much more trying to organize a boycott movement. Microsoft, Google, the big tech that's highly invested in the IDF, in the Israeli occupation entity in and of itself. We're going to be collaborating with Tech for Palestine because by the time we finish this current project, because we're prompting 11 different chatbots in Arabic and English, and we're asking for 500 words, we're estimating to have almost 150,000 words to analyze. The previous project we did with Excel sheets. You know, this project needs Python. This project maybe will even use LLMs to analyze. But we're working with technology produced by Tech for Palestine. They have a media meter bias project. And so I would highly recommend, if you're interested to see some of the tools they've already developed, please check them out. And then of course we have artists like Amira Kawas, who I introduced you to before, who sees that AI is being weaponized. But she's also trying to use AI for humanity. So she's built something called the Tatris Garden. This is another example of her AI-generated Tatris, where she's training it to generate these kind of embroideries with good success. I mean, this is very beautiful. So she has hope that AI can be pro-people, pro-Palestine, pro-humanity. And she's working on it by training it. So this brings us to critical AI literacy. And I believe that if we are to have such a framework, that this framework must include media imperialism. It's not just my favorite thing to talk about at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it's essential to understand AI. We have to put it in the context of how technology has always been used for war, but also to resist. We have to build those struggles inspired by what has happened before. And in the past, I showed you the radio station used as part of the colonization of Palestine. Radio was also used to resist the colonization of Algeria by the French. The FLN built a radio station. And they were able to unite and build a resistance movement in part through those broadcasts. So yes, media can be used as a tool of resistance. Detecting anti-Palestinian bias is very important, and that's what we're doing in this research, because I think a lot of us run into this bias. But unless we're doing it on a large scale, we can't reveal those things that hurt, that hurt the cause, that hurt international rights, that undermine human rights, that undermine the history and the context and the ongoing struggles that prevent the Palestinian people from returning to their land. And so we can see this example of the extreme need to do this research in both English and Arabic. So this is a screenshot from our research in 2023. And this prompt asked about Sabra and Shatila, who committed the massacre in 1982 in Beirut, and tell me about the war crimes. And I know you're saying, what, yeah. So this would be the so-called hallucination, but remember, it's not a hallucination, because that's a personification. This is not just an error either. This is what words are likely to come next in a sentence. And so this is what ChatGPT generated. The translation would be Christian Palestinian peasant militia. How did it get to that? Not sure. Maybe we can guess it was an error in translation. Maybe because we had a lot of experiences with ChatGPT 3.5. Again, this is fall 2023, where the Arabic prompts took so long to be generated that we almost thought there must be some kind of Google Translate thing happening, where maybe it's translating and then generating. And so we thought maybe Palestinian Christians was supposed to be Phalangist Christians, and Phalange got lost in translation. But it still doesn't make any sense. The peasant part doesn't make any sense. I know, I don't understand it, but it's not a hallucination. This is an error in the predictive nature of the software. And this happens all the time. My colleague Daniel Yegic, who was part of this research that we did along with Dana Abbas, he was in class this week talking about media coverage of who bombed the synagogue in downtown Beirut in 1982. Does anybody know? Who bombed the synagogue in downtown Beirut in 1982, here in Lebanon?
It's the IDF, right?
It was the IDF. But when you go to Google and you search it, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll before you find a non-Israeli source that's going to tell you that. And so I asked him, did you ask ChatGPT? And he said no, and I said, okay, let's ask it. So I opened my private window, right, because I want to protect my data, go through the web browser, never have this app on your phone, and entered the question. Tell me who bombed the synagogue in downtown Beirut in 1982 and why they did it. Use facts in your answers, use expert level writing, and give me sources. And what did ChatGPT say, you think? Who did it? Likely Palestinians. Likely. Again, it's predicting what word comes next. Synagogue is bombed. The next word, according to ChatGPT, is Palestinians did it. So this is why we need to absolutely be detecting this anti-Palestinian media bias, because we need to have research to back up the claims to understand why we need critical media literacy. And of course, I do believe we need to study the political economy of AI within this context of what is critical AI media literacy. And this is why we're doing the project now with 11 different chatbots coming from different political economies. We want to see if there's a link between the bias that we find in the text and the political economy that these AIs are built and structured by. Of course, I think everyone should ask who benefits. As I mentioned at the start, Who benefits from the rapid consultations that are happening? The tech industry. They're going to make tons of profits. Who benefits from the rapid deployment in universities around the world by AI? LAU is considering, that's where I'm from, Lebanese American University, they're considering buying a license for OpenAI. That's money for ChatGPT. That's money for OpenAI. So we need to ask who benefits, and we also need to recognize ChatGPT is a bullshitter. And so what do I mean by that? First of all, it's a link to an academic article that applies theories of bullshit to ChatGPT. And they actually argue we should never use the term hallucination because it personifies the AI. But also we need to recognize it's not hallucinations, it's bullshit. And this is why it shouldn't be used in universities. Chatbots are bullshit. So this is where I say thank you, and we discuss, and you can give me some more suggestions for what you think critical AI should include, AI literacy should include. Okay? Any questions or comments? Suggestions on what we should include in a critical AI literacy? Yeah, and if anything you want me to come back to, I can. Yeah.
Do you know about this website called Compare AI?
Compare AI?
Yeah, it's
No.
wonderful. You can put in two windows, any two AIs, compare AI, and ask the same question with the same prompt, and see the differences, and then rate the AIs. And you have access to the rate to everybody's rating about this.
Yeah.
To this.
So we saw this, I think the students can confirm in the room, we saw this with Gemini, right? Where it would give two answers, answer one, answer two, and then ask you to rate it. So I've seen that on specific chatbots, but I haven't seen this.
No, this compares any chatbot.
I will check it out
Yeah.
for sure. And I'm also curious to know who made it, do you know?
It's French.
It's French, okay.
It will, the interface here, but my phone is in French. So.
That's okay.
But okay,
Yeah.
it might have another interface.
No, but I just want to know if it's French, like it's in a French
No,
national
it's the
development.
French government.
Government, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to the back, yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No
This is
problem.
great. So I just wanted to, so I work with Tech for Palestine as a researcher, so I just wanted to
Yay.
shout out.
Yeah.
There's Thora AI, or Thora AI, so THAURA.ai. And it was one of our projects that was started by displaced Syrian engineers. And their whole intent is to decolonize AI, so
Do
they're
you spell
cool.
Thaura like this?
Yes, oh no,
You.
the U.
Here,
Yeah,
U at the end?
THAURA.ai.
THAURA.
Yeah, yeah.
H.
Yeah,
Dot
so
AI.
you all can check them out because they're pro-Palestinian, obviously, and yeah, they try to resist kind of this colonial imperialism of.
Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess I have a question. We teach Palestinians coding, and for them, they're learning, obviously, prompt engineering and all of this kind of stuff now. I guess what the overall point I'm trying to ask is, which platform, they're using ChatGPT a lot, right, for code and for English and things like that. And I don't now know from this which one to use, what to tell them. I guess the point is they need to cross-reference across multiple platforms. Do you think that's the overall way to go, especially for students?
I mean, I had a bit of a freak out when this news came out this week, because we're about to start a project with people in Palestine, asking ChatGPT about Palestine. But we had already determined that the students would be doing it in a lab at There's 8, and I just made sure that this will absolutely happen in a lab.
Yeah.
And not on students' personal devices, and that they should not be using their personal emails because DeepSeek and Claude require you to share your email before you can use them. Most of the AI we picked, it's available through a web browser, so you can easily log in and put on that incognito mask, but it still has your IP address. But I thought if it's just the There's 8 University, then it's an institutional IP, it's not an individual IP. So the fact is that we're trying to protect students as they get ready to do something like this. But in terms of which AI to use, we have to ask, why are we even using them? Why are we using chatbots?
Try compare AI.
Yeah, try compare AI
Yeah.
for sure if you want them to see the difference. Like I haven't looked at it myself, but our colleague here says it's good in terms of pointing out differences. I think they should definitely have access to workshops like this. In fact, we're going to be doing a workshop like this in Arabic at Bears 8 University. So the students there will have the same training that the students have here. They'll be introduced to the research we previously did. They'll be introduced to the framework, and then they're going to collect the data. And I think through the data collection, the students will be able to learn that there is a need for critical AI literacy. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not necessarily about which chatbot to use. It's why use chatbots at all, and also what are you doing with your use, and how is it implementing a framework of critical AI literacy. I think that's the most important thing to think about. And obviously protect yourself.
Yeah.
Don't put ChatGPT on your phone.
Yeah.
Advise all your colleagues, students in Palestine not to do that, obviously. So we'll come over here and then we'll come here, okay? Yeah.
I wondered about the prompting
Yeah.
and whether you said you always said use facts and answers and expert level sources, and whether the average user is going to use that sort of prompt as well. And so if you did any comparison between outputs that didn't have that prompt as well.
We didn't compare to outputs that didn't have that prompt. I wanted to show you this. Users, if they read the guidelines, would have the same information we had for how to prompt. These tips come from ChatGPT on how to prompt. And there's a lot of universities, including LAU, that are teaching students how to prompt better. So, so this information is out there, and we wanted the research to be systematic. That's the nature of research. Everybody has to follow something like a recipe, and then be able to analyze those results so that we have data that we've collected that follows the same prompting. And so that's why we did the prompt engineering. But it would be a different project if we just said, tell me about this, you know, without the prompt engineering part. But for this project, because we wanted it to be systematic, that's why we included these levels of instructions. And also because we wanted facts. You know, we didn't want...
Emotion.
Yeah, without the emotion, we didn't want it to pretend like you're, I don't know, in a play, or, you know, we didn't want it to tell us its opinion or give us an analysis. We wanted facts. We wanted examples. And sometimes students would write, give me, you know, war crimes, give me examples of war crimes. So that's why it was like that. Yep.
Yes, I have two questions. One on a personal level and one on a university level. Now, when ChatGPT and AI was born, my own form of resistance was that I avoided using it. And I heard from many people, Mona, you are behind technology. You cannot not use it. So my question that is related to a personal level and to a university level is like avoiding taking a decision on a university level not to use AI or any other form of resistance is possible. Like academic institutions, instead of buying the license, they have a role of resistance. Is there any kind of awareness that they have this duty as academic institutions? Is there such a discussion, and what ways of resistance they're thinking of?
So these discussions are happening at the national level in different countries. And I gave you this example of this letter from Belgium, which is actually available in different languages. And I think we need similar letters in Lebanon. I think we need similar letters across the region. And they ask this exact question: what are the risks that we're exposing our students to? And they actually point to, there's no value in these companies who are developing these AI tools for education. They're not education companies. They don't specialize in pedagogy. But yeah, we're embracing those tools. Now, there are some tools that we already use at universities. I don't know about your university experiences, but at LAU we use Blackboard. It has some native, meaning already within Blackboard, AI tools. And so I think that if your university is already using an educational resource that is incorporating some AI tools, it's fine to use those because they're already there, but they're also within the pedagogical, you know, values of what edtech is, of what educational technology is. And so I think it's fine to use those, but use those critically, test them in your classroom. But I would not bring in a company like OpenAI that's not an educational company,
Yeah.
that doesn't know pedagogical values or pedagogical safeguarding, or that's potentially going to take that data and hand it over to not just Israel, but any state. OpenAI in its policies, in its press releases, has said it works with friendly states, like the United States of America. And we've seen Sam Altman and OpenAI sit down with Trump. And its allies, it says that, and its allies. Well, who's the biggest ally of America? It's the American regime backing Israel. And so all of that content that you're putting, not you, but anyone that's using ChatGPT, is potentially in the hands of America or Israel. And that can take someone's life away, as it has for the Palestinian student sitting in jail right now for ChatGPT use. That was your first question. What was your second?
Yes, I think both are related. Maybe the second question is related for people who are avoiding AI. Are they missing anything? Like, to me, it's a form of resistance that I use.
Yeah, so I think that part of what they refer to as the overhyped AI technologies is that it's the PR campaigns, it's the advertising, it's the branding of AI that's telling us we're missing out. These chatbots, these LLMs, when you read this letter, I recommend highly that you read this letter, because it's written by AI scientists who see through the hype of LLMs and chatbots. These are toys today that are being used to develop AI through your free labor. It's not going to be the AI of the future. This is just a means to push it out to consumers to grow their systems based on our free labor and us willing them giving our data and training their systems on data sets that they don't necessarily have access to. How many of you have uploaded your voice to AI? How many of you have uploaded your image to AI? How many of you have ever uploaded a document of yours to AI? I hope none of you, but probably a lot of you have. Right, Nancy? But the point is, be very careful about what you freely give away, because it will come back to haunt you. So I don't think you're in the past by resisting. I think you're in the present because you know about the past in the history of the ways in which technology has been used for colonialism and to kill people. So we have to be very mindful of that.
And are universities considering integrating AI literacy courses now?
So we are launching an AI literacy course at LAU that will be free and available to anyone in the world. We filmed it. It was presented as a workshop inside of a classroom at LAU, and we filmed it, and we're going to cut it into a online class that will be asynchronous, and anyone can watch and take a small assessment to get some basics of AI literacy. And that's the kind of work I think we need to be doing. We need to be creating free, open, online learning about AI and spreading as much as we can information about what is critical AI literacy. And so that's why when we hopefully publish this paper in Third World Quarterly with my colleagues Dr. Yegij and Dana Abbas, the conclusion of that article is that we need a critical AI literacy. And so I hope that through Third World Quarterly, we're able to send that message worldwide and build a network of critical scholars, critical technology folks coming together and putting something like this together.
How do we get access to that?
When it gets published,
Okay.
it's under peer review now, but I will tell the world. And then of course you can follow our social media accounts, even though social media is also media imperialist, CMI_LAU. We'll announce it there when it's published. And then of course the course that I mentioned, the online course, will be launched at Online LAU. So you can look up Online LAU. And there's already a free course there called Media in Palestine, by the way. It's a really great course that a lot of this research-based teaching that I'm introducing you to was conducted as part of this course called Media in Palestine at LAU, but we have a free online version of the course that's open every fall for people to register worldwide. It's more about media than it is about technology, but it's a sample of the kind of work we're doing at LAU, which is somehow a corporate but yet, nonprofit at the same time, public university in Lebanon. And so we're trying in some ways to give the world a sample of the education that we have at LAU, but also it's because all knowledge should be free. We're trying to free some of the education opportunities that we have at LAU, like this class called Media in Palestine, or this research on AI literacy by developing a critical AI literacy course and making it free. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I come from another sector, not from education. I'm from Norwegian. People said it's an INGO, and I'm just thinking, do you have any connection to that sector? Because right now, for example, as they're thinking of the humanitarian aid in Palestine and so on, and I know many of my colleagues in the sector just use it for reporting and collecting data, and it's been so, I mean, I've never used it yet. But do you have any communication with that kind of sector?
The humanitarian sector?
Because it will put people directly at risk if it's, you know, such collection of data unintentionally.
Yeah, I'm open to doing workshops with anyone. I have done workshops in Jordan at some convergences, but most of the people who are coming to these spaces are media educators and people who are interested in media literacy,
Okay.
which typically isn't the humanitarian aid sector, although maybe they should be, if they're relying heavily on these kind of sources that are being used in what's called an AI. I think if more humanitarians knew about the AI-assisted genocide, which has made headlines. I didn't come up with that concept. That's like from a headline, AI-assisted genocide. So this is in the headlines if they just, you know, again, literacy is not something that's a choice, it's a necessity.
Yeah.
And it has been that way since the rise of media imperialism in the late 19th century. We have to know how media and technology is being used against us, but we also need to know how to use it to conquer those who are oppressing us. So, yeah, shout out to the humanitarians, get in touch. Apparently you need some AI literacy.
Oh yes, I do.
Okay. Any other questions or comments or suggestions for resources? Yeah.
For the future research, will you be using the paid version?
No. So we're specifically not using the paid versions. We're specifically not signing into accounts because, and we're also using students to write questions. So I didn't tell the students what questions to write. They wrote the questions because we want to test it as it's being used. It's being promoted to students. And so many students are using it through the web browsers. And yes, there are paid versions, but many students are not going to pay. So we're using it as students use. And so I think the research-based teaching methodology is actually more accurate to the kind of content that's being generated. I would imagine that probably around 10% of users actually get the paid version of anything. That's typically what it is when it comes to free technology. It's only about 10% of people actually get the paid versions. You had a question too?
Yes. Were there any experience with the ChatGPT on the Onion, on the dark web?
Like in our research?
Yes.
No. I wouldn't send my students to the dark web.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, just for their own protection too. But what do you mean by that?
I meant that the results should be not restricted in the ChatGPT of the dark web. So maybe the result will be different.
So again, we're trying to test the models that most people would run into. So we're using the latest version of ChatGPT made available by ChatGPT, not something that people have to go find on the dark web.
Okay.
The same thing with Llama and with Quinn and all these different versions, like even DeepSeek, you can download it and use it locally. But we're not asking students to do that. You had asked also about universities and what some solutions are for universities.
Yeah.
I think in addition to critical AI literacy, I think building local AI and thinking about how to build local AI and avoid the biases that are built even into a system like DeepSeek. When you download it and you strip away all of the training data from DeepSeek, you're still left with a language model that is biased because what data set, what tags, what labels were put on what by who, was it originally developed in Arabic or not? Like all of this creates biases in your AI. So building local tools and finding ways to build them differently and using it closed network, not connecting it to other AI. We have some examples of this at LAU where there's been a few tools built in the library that we're going to be doing research on now to see if they're more, or see how they are biased to other kinds of AI that are available. Other comments, suggestions, or questions? Okay. Thank you all for your time.